He's a rock star.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
He's a rock star. He's a rock star, and he's also my kiteboarding friend. We're kiteboarding buddies, and this is Amanda.
Yay.
So may I introduce Bill Ty and Amanda. And Bill, you've been doing some amazing things in the NFT space. Why don't we start with, what was it that got you into NFTs?
So I did happen to be early into, actually predating crypto. I was a denizen of Second Life with our mutual friend, Philip Rosedale. And around 2003 or so, I took on the moniker Alan Greenspan Gollum, and Philip launched the Linden Dollar. So the idea of digital value exchange has been part of my, kind of stuff for a couple of decades. When the Bitcoin white paper came out, I kind of got into the space, ended up funding Bitfury and a few other things. I'm chairman of the board of Hut 8 Mining, if you know that company. Yeah. And the idea of tokenized value exchange extended, of course, into Ethereum. And when CryptoKitties broke out, and I think Kelsey Cole's in the audience somewhere, she reunited me with some of my friends there, and I ended up backing Dapper Labs. So
you're one of the early investors in Dapper?
Yes, I am, one of the angels, yes. Wow. Yeah, so that got me into the space, and then it just has kind of continued from there.
And you're doing something really interesting right now, you and Amanda.
Yeah, so this year has been a phenomenal year for everybody in this audience, of course, and the space is I've never, in 30 years of technology, seen a revenue wave of this scale and this growth rate ever.
Zero to 100 in seconds.
Holy, whoa! It's like Jefferies Research released a report a few weeks ago that if I have the numbers right, valued the NFT market in assets, I think last year at $388 million, and this year already $10 billion to date, and they think it might be 14 to 25 for year end. I mean, nothing in our industry has grown at 20 to 30-fold at that scale before.
Why do you think?
Oh, I think the timing is just perfect. Of course, there were, what's that phrase? It's kind of like, the instant success took 7 years, or whatever it is. Like all startups are like that. And I think what's happened is we've had a couple of decades of laying the railway tracks for this type of thing, looking for its killer app. And there was a little bit of a head fake in 2016-17 with the ICO wave. But I think that was, a very technically driven, not from a trading perspective, but a lot of the storytelling around the promises of what these ICOs would become were simply that, technical promises. A lot of them didn't play out. And if you think about the value of ICO collections, and actually let me back up. I can also say a Bitcoin or an Ethereum are effectively one item in a one-of collection. In Bitcoin's case, one of 21 million. So everything is accounted for on a ledger. So NFTs are actually the master category with cryptocurrencies as a subset. And so now that we've got that framework out there, we're in a world instead of like an ICO, the value of the whole collection was the marginal trade, just like a stock, right? The last person that bought a share of Cisco determine the value of every share of Cisco to some, whatever it's worth, hundreds of billions of dollars. Now you have hyper-granular matching of supply and demand. The buyer isn't just flipping something as part of a large commodity set. The buyer likes that one item. They may be in a master collection, but I think the hyper-granularity of that purchase and the emotive connection, it gives you something that makes it sticky.
Yeah. And unlike the one of 21 million example, when you own one of an NFT, you feel like it's sort of personal.
That's it, right? And think about so if you have cryptocurrency out there, so let's say Ethereum gets exactly to the price of one NFT item that you like. Do you want to buy another Ethereum? Or do you want to flip that Ethereum into that? And then if Ethereum and everything starts to fall, are you going to sell your NFT? So I think, think about how people buy houses. The housing markets, sure, they can collapse when they're over-levered and you get a credit issue. But generally speaking, if the housing market comes down a bit, you just don't sell your house, right? So I think, yeah, there's some speculation involved in NFTs for sure, but I think it's a much more sticky market, and you bought that house because it fits your needs. people buy the NFT because it's an expression of themselves.
It's an expression of themselves, and it also makes them feel a belonging. And we were talking outside about the tribal thing, and you were giving that example of, you know, us old guys back in the 80s. And
yeah, so I think, you know, NFTs are sort of, they're an expression of alignment of interest across communities of interest, and any given person can be a member of multiple communities at the same time. And, you know, if you think about it in terms of clothing brands and what people wear, and Jody and I were dating ourselves a little bit, but, you know, if you think about, you know, the advent of the polo shirts or the Izod with a little alligator thing on it, right? You could buy a regular shirt without that for, you know, $3 to $5 or whatever they were, and you could buy one with it for 15 to 20, you know? So what accounts for a 5X value? A little green thread alligator stitched on a shirt? Well, it was basically an expression of who you were and what you thought your status was to 30 people in your classroom. Yeah. And that was it.
Just a few people, but
yes.
It was important how you felt you looked to those people.
Yes, and now you're expanding what was your 30 high school friends that, oh, I can buy the Izod shirt. You know, now it's millions potentially, or hundreds of thousands.
And you can own it. You can really own it.
Yes, and
it is yours. And the next person who gets it sees that it's yours, which is even better than the shirt example.
Yes, yes. So there's a little bit of branding, a little bit of community, a little bit of promoting your status, your role in a community, and there's also granularity in that because you can have kind of, you know, different facets within, say, the Bored Apes. You know, you identify, you look at that array of pictures and it's like, I like that one. That one reminds me of me, or that one reminds me of something. You know, it's a way to kind of like tighten it up.
We were talking with Alexis from Reddit about how NFTs can connect sort of our dream world, our aspirational world, and the real world, us. And you're sort of doing that a little bit with the project that you've just...
Yeah,
would you guys tell us about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see this is our on-chain monkey, and thanks for wearing our hat, Jody. But on-chain monkey is the first profile pic collection, all on-chain in a single transaction. We launched it September 11th. We actually gave out 9,500 NFTs. They were all claimed within 4 hours. I think the gas fees were like $40 at the time. And
you minted on Ethereum, right? It was
on Ethereum.
So
yeah, and like we literally, we didn't do any marketing for it. Like Danny just tweeted out to some friends and on WhatsApp said, hey guys, like I just created this really cool kind of historic profile pic collection. And all of a sudden, all these people kind of claimed them. And then it's steadily kind of gone up in value. I think it's about 2,000 on average per OCM. And so, and then, you know, they were giving them for free. So it's, I think, you know, about a $20 million collection. We've taken about 10% of
How did you do that,
royalties.
Though? How did you just suddenly create so much value?
I think part of it is definitely being historic. So, I mean, we really were kind of the first, we believe, single transaction. But I think we've also done a lot to create a community. And so we have, I think, about 15,000 people in our Discord. We do things like Halloween parades. We did projections in San Francisco and LA, kind of like if you think about Batman having his bat signal, we had our monkey signal to kind of tell people, wake up, hey guys, we need to do something about climate change. On Friday, which you can talk a little bit more about, we'll be doing projections during COP26 on the side of the Armadillo building where all the world leaders are meeting with like Art Blocks artist, Alexis Andre.
That was important a minute. So you said something about world leaders. I'm not sure I know any world leader that knows what an NFT is. How are you communicating?
They will soon, because there's going to be projections of NFTs on the main building that the UN Climate Summit is being held on November 5th.
No way.
Yeah,
and you're doing that?
We are doing that. So,
yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
So,
Sorry, Bill, you are teaching world leaders about NFTs.
Yeah, so, you know, I think you're asking, like, why did our community take hold? I think, you know, what we wanted to do was empower and unlock people that cared about social and environmental change in a positive way. And so I think, you know, as we're talking about, you know, what do you do with an NFT, or what do you do with a like branding of yourself in any way? In our community, we've basically drawn together tens of thousands of people already that care and that want to use the power of what this NFT wave represents to fund, to fuel communities trying to do positive things in this world. And so, we started, actually, the origin story is useful. When I was involved in the angel funding of Dapper Labs, coming up in a few months was an ocean charity gala that I was driving every year at that time.
An ocean, what was it?
Ocean charity. It was called Making Waves. So we used to, before pre-COVID, we used to throw these annual fundraisers, sometimes involving people like Richard Branson or Sylvia Earle, and we would gather our community. I also have a nonprofit I started called ACTITE. It stands for Athletes, Conservationists, Technologists, Artists, Innovators. It's what came out of our kiteboarding community.
By the way, just to stop you a moment, you guys should know, Bill is one of the best kiteboarders that I know. He's very cool.
He's a sponsored kiteboarder at one point.
Can you do it for us?
I think I peaked around 2010, so I still ride 3 times a week in the summer, but around that community of kiteboarders that included a lot of really interesting entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley sprang out this organization that would meet every year on Maui, and then also Perth, Australia, and also, we're going snow kiting in January in Switzerland. Jody, you're welcome to join us.
Thank you.
And this group of people just gelled into taking our energy and saying, you know what, we need to do something more than just kind of like kite around. We got a lot of interesting people. And we decided to form a nonprofit. This nonprofit, again, Athletes, Conservationists, Technologists, Artists, Innovators, did things like set up a marine conservation area off the coast of Australia over the Abrolhos. And then we also, back to the NFT story, when we funded Dapper Labs, I asked them, I said, these cats spinning around are really fun, but can we do something interesting? Can you make me a special edition crypto kitty for my ocean gala? I want to auction it off and do something good with it. And I think Rome and team were like, cats and ocean, what can that look like?
Swimming cats.
Yeah, so they came up with Hanu Kitty. And Hanu Kitty was it still is, it's a crypto kitty, one-off special edition with a turtle shell and fins. We managed to auction that off. I got Sir Richard Branson to launch it at our Morocco Blockchain Summit.
Amazing.
And we sold it for $25,000 3 years ago. That money went to Captain Paul Watson, who parked his ship off of the turtle nesting area in Antigua and had people walking the beaches 24/7 for weeks on an island where there's a poor enough economy that sometimes people will catch the turtles and eat them. So they enabled a lot of baby turtles to make it to the ocean that year. And I thought, you know what? This is what the NFT wave is meant to do. It's meant to align communities of interest, in this case, ocean-loving people, around a cause to fuel and fund good things on this planet.
And it's a global currency.
Yeah, so clock forward 3 years, here we are with NBA Top Shot going crazy and all these things, just, doing just amazing energy in this space. So we decided to form MetaGood. And Danny, who Amanda referred to, he was the person that I met running the Stanford Bitcoin meetup groups in 2013.
Yeah.
And one of these special people, got a PhD in computer science from Stanford, and I walked up to him one day and I said, Danny, if you ever start a company, I'm going to write a check. And then he went and started MyCoin.
Right.
It's the largest crypto exchange in Taiwan. And then I pulled him out of there to start a company called Blockseer, which was a blockchain explorer that got acquired. And then he's been, kind of hanging, waiting for the next thing, and the timing came. So Amanda used to run Community, or still does, for our nonprofit, and introduced those two. Danny formed the company. Off we go with MetaGood, and we had intended to launch around some UN campaigns.
MetaGood is a great name, by the way.
Well, and so there's some thinking. Yeah. Thank you.
It's a great name.
We were before Facebook did this recent thing. But
no, they're just trying to copy you.
Yeah, and what we're envisioning there is that, we'd love to have this become the genesis block for a chain of events and branches of good things by good people in communities just doing cool things. So just like Ethereum had Ethereum Classic and branched off, and there's different kinds of Bitcoin, anyone in our community can kind of rally the other people towards a cause. And the community, the on-chain monkey, it was a bit of an accident, but it's wonderful to see because Danny, he's so technically savvy, he just wanted to prove to himself that he could create an entire collection of 10,000 items with one click and not have lots of gas fees. So what's very special about this collection technologically is that it is on Ethereum.
Is it generative art?
The first one is Ethereum. It's a scalable vector graphics file. So it's SVG based with the variables table and everything else in one long equation.
Wow.
The entire collection is generated from one block.
Wow.
So it's not, taking a bunch of things and minting one at a time or in groups.
It's amazing.
Like all done, and so that was going to be the basis, and still is, for a bunch of things we do on that path. But we had planned to and are still launching. And again, on the 5th, there are going to be projections by the team. If you New Yorkers that live here, you may remember about 6 years ago, the Empire State Building was lit up with videos and photos of endangered species. That was done by the director of The Cove and Racing Extinction, who also produced Game Changers and a bunch of other interesting films. That group is called Projecting Change for the future through making projections. And they are part of the team of MetaGood. We did a little bit of guerrilla activity around the Milken Summit and projected monkeys on buildings.
The Milken Summit.
Yes.
But the Milken...
With Mike Milken.
All across LA and then
the Milken
San
Summit would
Francisco.
not have known what an NFT is.
No, they wouldn't, So I think we just wanted people like, a little Banksy-like, right? So there's NFTs.
Were you telling me something funny that you took Pussy Riot to the Milken Summit?
Yes. Okay, so if any of you, Pussy Riot's awesome. So Pussy
You guys
Riot,
know who Pussy Riot is, of course.
look her up, do a Google search on Pussy Riot.
The best thing is she actually found us through our Discord, and she's an OCM holder, and she came into our Discord like one Saturday night, and all the monkeys were super excited. And then we were able to connect her with Bill, and then that kind of through the community, they connected in real life.
And she wore something that said "Arrest me" on the back?
Yeah, okay, so the Milken Summit, Michael Milken is somebody that revolutionized modern finance through, kind of junk bonds. He's the junk bond king and, got into a little bit of trouble for it.
And then he wanted to give back to the community.
Yeah, in a big way. So he started the Milken Institute, and that conference, their global conference every year, is also known as the Davos of Finance. So it's a little bit of a hotty-toddy thing. But, it attracts people. I was there this year, and there were so many interesting characters, ranging from Steven Mnuchin to the Minister of Finance of Saudi Arabia, and, lots of sort of titans. The titans of finance show up at this thing every year. A little bit older, typically, a little more stale and staid. And they wanted me to explain to everybody what NFTs were.
Amazing.
And so I thought, well, how do I do this? How do I get this in their head?
I hope you didn't say non-fungible token.
We did have to say that at some point, but I decided that we're going to invite Pussy Riot. And so I tell the organizers, I'd like to bring Pussy Riot on because she's doing some NFT stuff to fund her causes. And their first response back was, we're not sure that Milken Summit would like political anarchists in the, anyway, but we got him over the hump, and she showed up, and, just wonderful. So there's like 1,000 people in dark suits, and some still wearing ties.
I don't think any of them bought tickets to NFT.NYC.
Yes,
That's the next
crowd.
thing.
And in walks this woman with blue hair and a jacket that says, "Arrest me." So, and she has actually been arrested. So she got known because she had a song in Russia that had some lyrics that could be subjectively interpreted as anti-Putin. And they literally rocked up and put her in jail for 2 years. But she's, and so she spent the rest of her life now fighting for, kind of disenfranchised people that need a voice. So you look her up too. She has a collection on OpenSea, but look up her stuff there too.
I wanted to ask you, because we're going to go to questions soon. You have always been such a visionary and someone who connects people and brings different ecosystems together. Tell us a little bit about what your vision is for the NFT ecosystem over the next couple of years. Where do you think will be disruptive, or I know you're working on NGOs and things, but where do you think NFTs will make the biggest difference?
NFTs, I think, are a unifying force around granular, disparate communities of interest, as I mentioned before. And if you take, so there's a couple of things that I think it's an empowering, a tool of massive empowerment. I'm going to take music as an example. and then drive kind of towards why people will end up being what they used to be. Okay, so Jody and I were out in the hallway talking about, well, what's going to happen to art? What happened to music, right? And so now this is not specifically NFTs, but the behavior is the same. We were talking about Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, which was written in 1808. And if you think about the value of that, an incredible genius writing something just incredibly detailed and beautiful, and that was what music was at its time. And you could have said, well, this is the pinnacle of all music ever. There's going to be never anything better than this. And then over a couple centuries, along comes GarageBand. And then the next thing you know, there's people that maybe had talent, but it was latent, not easy to train and bring out. And then you have hundreds of genres, whether it's like a Doja Cat or Guns N' Roses or whatever it is. Now you have thousands of communities of interest around people that wouldn't have been considered musicians a few hundred years ago. And the Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, I don't know what the economic dollar value was, but it's probably not much in today's terms. The music industry under the new regime has generated $1 trillion of revenue. So it's still, in its seeming decline, generating $23 billion a year, mostly from artists that have been totally empowered recently that wouldn't have ever been artists before in that genre. So now we're seeing that translated to digital art. Yeah, there's a Van Gogh out there, and he did some amazing stuff, but how many million people are being empowered today by things like Canva? That can express themselves in really cool stuff.
So you're involved with Canva too, aren't you?
I'm one of the original investors in Canva
Amazing.
too. Yes, I'll put that there from your home country, Australia.
Well, I'm in New York. I don't speak like one, but I was born here, and I've actually been telling everyone in Australia who's not allowed to come to the US that everyone in New York now talks like me.
They do. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I think and as I think about the way societies have formed and changed and communities have formed and changed. The period that we've been in for the last 100, 150 years, totally dominated by the physical industrial revolution, is an outlier. So if you think about human history for 400, some people say humans have been around for 400,000 years, some say 2 million, but whatever it is, let's say 400,000 years. For that period of time, it's only been about 100 years where people worked for a company. So if you think about what it was like 300 or 400 years ago, you might, go fishing with 5 friends in the morning and then go pick berries with 10 other ones in the afternoon. You might work on the field and with different people. So all day, you had 5 or 6 or 7 jobs. And you had 5 or 6 or 7 different groups with which you did that. Your work was totally flexible every day. It was inspiration based by the moment. And you didn't have to sit in one room cranking on a crank for Ford Motor Company every day for 50 years on the promise of a pension that might not actually come, right? So the structures that we know today are abnormal. And so I think if you think about currencies in that regard, when even in the American colonies a couple of hundred years ago, every state had their own currency. Those states were mostly based on religious or ethnic principles, but you had communities of trust geographically locked. Virginia had their own currency. New York had their own currency. Everybody had their own currency. And yeah, there were interchange points, just like there are now, but that was the norm for 99.96% of human history.
Because it's part of the community.
Yes, and now, so the dollar dominance around, and you could look at the dollar as an ICO of oil barrels, right? So if you were a country that wanted to store your economic productivity for the future, what do? You have to hoard oil to run the machines. Instead of buying the oil, you just hoard the dollars because you can buy the oil because it's denominated in that, right? So we're in a very unusual period where we're deconstructing back to how humans have been for almost all of time ever. And so now you can be a part of any community, and we're not landlocked to Virginia.
And so what you're saying is NFTs are giving us something back that we had a while ago.
We are bringing humanity back to what it always was.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're seeing examples, for example, in ticketing, where e-tickets meant that people didn't have stubs anymore. 100 years ago, people would take stubs home and they'd say, oh, I went to that game. And now NFTs are actually putting stubs back in ticketing.
Yeah, but because, you could lose those paper stubs.
Exactly.
And now they're a lot lower friction to use and store.
We only have a few more minutes, so I'd like to ask the audience for some questions. Does anyone have any question for Bill? Yes. Do you want to come up? Thanks. think we only have a limited time for a couple. Will you say who you are?
Oh, hello. My name is Victoria Kanya, and I'm an independent game designer and game producer. So one of the things that I've been trying to do is figure out how to explain NFTs to my family members and friends. And one thing that I've learned at this conference is the value of NFTs is about self-expression and creativity, just like you said, and also about community. And recently somebody asked me, why do you need NFTs to facilitate those things or to mediate those things if those things can exist without them already? And so I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that, because I'm really trying to figure out how to get more people to adopt this and understand what's going on here. So thank you.
So I'll deconstruct that into two pieces, and I'd say that, you know, part of it is a marketplace where you're connected, and the other is the community around those. So I was trying to explain to an economist named Hernando de Soto what an NFT was, and he had just bought a rug off of the Spanish equivalent or South American equivalent of eBay called Mercado Libre. And I said, well, Hernando, think of it this way. You just bought this rug. 5 days ago, it didn't exist. It was in somebody's garage worth nothing. As soon as somebody took a JPEG of it, put it up on the eBay equivalent, described it, it was broadcast to a marketplace of buyers, and you bought it for $2,000. All this value was created by unlocking an asset and broadcasting it to a marketplace so you could find it and others that had interest in it could find it. Now think about the behavior of collections, baseball cards. So around, you know, for many, many decades, companies would sell these little packs of baseball cards where your affinity with like the Dodgers or the Mets or whoever it was, it could be brought out by the ownership of that card. So in a way, they're kind of like tickets or member tokens that bring you into a community of interest. So I'd say it's, you know, both of those. It's kind of the connection of people to a context-aware cloud where you're now instantly connected to the other elements that are of the same ilk as you, and you can transact with them.
Awesome. I think one more question. Anyone got a last question? Bill, I just want to say that we have 3 values for Nft.NYC. One is to put as many people on stage as possible so the community has a voice. The other is to bring like-minded people together. And then one of the most important ones is to share with the broader community what we're doing. And you and Amanda are doing such an amazing job bringing NFTs to world leaders, bringing NFTs to Milken. So thank you so much on behalf of the community.
Well, thank you, Jody. And thank you for bringing everybody here. I mean, this is a wonderful group here.
Were you up because you wanted to ask one more question? Yeah. Okay, go for it. Okay, go for it.
It's good. You know, I think...
So the question is about the fragmented nature of NFTs.
Yeah, okay, so I think there comes a point in long tail, right? So in the 90s when people were looking at, you know, what the internet could do to empower micro content, there was, you know, because it used to be, for TV, for example, there were 3 stations, you know, ABC, NBC, CBS, and there's PBS too, you know, but it was very concentrated because there were small groups that controlled both production and distribution of content. That was true of the music business too, the record labels. So, but as digital has come and the cost of production and distribution is dropping to 0, and the access to that distribution through your screen is going infinite, now it's very, very empowering for all types of content, whether it's drawings or music or anything that can be digitized can now be brought to its market to find its rightful buyer. And so I think, you know, it's cloudy. There's a lot of stuff out there, but you know what? Information was like that until Google came out and organized the world's information. So I think, you know, anytime there's an explosion of content, whether it's web pages or the stuff that we have now, there will be a migration at some point to a value layer that is the search, navigation, discovery function. But once those exist, then you have this hyper-granular matching of buying demand, and it brings those assets that should have value but couldn't realize that value to their value point where they couldn't before. So I think it's all good. It's just kind of a question of navigating all that stuff.
the question is, Bill, are you funding any interoperable protocols?
Yes, well, actually, so the on-chain monkey collection from MetaGood, we are doing so tonight at 5 or 6, we are holding a little fun thing that flows into a Dapper Labs function at Cipriani, and we're going to do a little reveal. And we are making, we're going to do something where we have collections that are available on multiple chains, but not at the same time. So you'll be able to kind of pick a chain that you want your thing to be expressed on, and it will reside there initially, and always trade on that chain. But I think interoperability is going to come, whether it's happening at the like the low layers or the upper layers. You can still swap things today in terms of value swapping, but where they're originally registered, those have to be unique, and there can be multiple of those. That it doesn't matter where they're registered. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Definitely check our Twitter On-Chain Monkey, because we're kind of doing a reveal during the day. But everyone who's an On-Chain Monkey holder will have the ability to get another NFT that will be cross-chain. You get to pick a chain.
And Amanda, you just gave me your On-Chain Monkey cap. Do you have any more caps to give people?
We do. We will have them tonight for any of our On-Chain Monkey holders.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. You've been a fantastic
Thank you.
audience. Oh, he's got a
Thank
good
you,
question.
everybody, for
One more
coming.
question. We're so out of time, but go for it.
Makes total sense. NFTs can be used to rally and organize, fund and fuel communities around causes. And that's a cause.
Thank you
Matters.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Cancer NFT. Thank
All
you.
right, we'll check it out. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you.